Hello everyone, welcome back to the Magpie Channel TV, joined by Keith Downie. Thank you very much for joining me, Keith. Just under a year ago, it's a year this week since the takeover, since you stood on this rooftop and announced that Newcastle United had finally been taken over. Just quickly relive that moment for us.
Yeah, stood in the office, as I like to call it here. It was certainly like the office that week, because I was pretty much stationed here every hour, every day for, about 2-3 weeks after that. But listen, first, I can't believe it's a year. It's absolutely flown by. But I think when you actually break it down and you look at what's happened in that time, and obviously the changes that we made in the club, which I'm sure we'll get onto, you realise that a lot has happened. It just seems like it's gone by in a flash. But yeah, I got the training actually with the Metro and to come and meet you there, and I was just walking up to the stadium just now, and some of the memories were just kind of flashing back, and I was actually looking at my watch and thinking, what's the time? And I was like, oh, this is what was happening at that time a year ago and stuff. And yeah, listen, it was a massive day in the history of the football club. For me personally, it was a massive moment to be involved in, and obviously people come up all the time and talk to me about the takeover more than anything else, because obviously they were all watching on that day. And I think it's a funny little story. I've told you about this before, but it's interesting. People come up to me and they'll say, "Oh, so you just down from Scotland for the day? Are you just down covering Scotland for the day, like now?" And I said, "No, I live down here. I live in Newcastle. I've lived here 9 years." "Oh, right. I thought you just since the takeover you just." I said, "No, I've been covering the club for 9. You've been living in the city for 9 years." "Oh, right." And I think it's just because so many fans pre-takeover were so disillusioned. They just were switched off from everything, and now suddenly they're back. They want every little scrap of information. They're watching every fan site, everything in the news. They're all over Twitter, everywhere, YouTube, trying to find out every little bit of information, and it feels like the city is just re-energised again. The fans are re-engaged. Everyone's enjoying following the football club. And that day in itself, I knew when I was breaking the news at the time and announcing the takeover and reading out the statement, I knew the significance of the moment, and I think that's probably why I got a little bit emotional at the time, because I knew that what I was saying meant so much to so many other people. And yeah, it's great to look back on. It was great to know that it happened, and it's great to know that the club are in a better place now. And I look back at that day with fondness, because it was a really enjoyable day to be a part of.
It shows you that you have been engrossed in this area for that many years, because you could see that on your face, that you realised that it was a big moment, and that because of probably a few false dawns as well with takeovers in the last 2 or 3 years leading up to this PIF takeover that had finally happened, it was probably a sense of relief for yourself as well, I bet.
It was. Relief's the right word. It's exactly what it was like. And when I read that statement out, I could feel the adrenaline just leaving my body, and that was probably not just the adrenaline of that day that had built up, because obviously it was announced, I think, just after 5, and the kind of it built up that day to a crescendo. Like I knew that the consortium were here. I'd actually already been over. In fact, no, I just went over to do the interview with Amanda Staveley after, but I'd been there the night before at the hotel and met members of the group, and I knew they were here, so I knew it was actually happening. So I kind of went to sleep the night before thinking, how am I going to say this? How am I going to break the news?
You didn't get much sleep.
I didn't. I mean, if you look back at the video from me, I had dark eyes and dark bags under my eyes, because I was tired, because I knew that I had a big day coming. I knew it was going to be a really big moment, and yeah, of course, it was just like it kind of made me feel emotional, because of the build-up, and one because of everything that happened in that day. But as you allude to, it was also the 2, 3, 4, 9 years for me before that, where it felt like the club were going nowhere. Of course it wasn't going anywhere. You were just existing. And we, as the media in the North East, had been at front and centre of all the reporting. We'd said a number of times that we thought the takeover was going to happen, or I think on one occasion we said it was pretty much agreed, and then there was false dawns, there was groups trying to get publicity out of it. We were probably a bit naive, some of us in the media. I think most of the guys will probably agree. We were all a little bit naive as to who was trying to buy the club and who they were, and people were making outlandish claims. And I remember when it fell through in the July beforehand in 2020, stood again on this roof, and my dad was with me actually, because my mum and dad had been down from Edinburgh visiting. We were out for lunch, and I got a call to say takeover's followed through, the Saudis have pulled out. And I said, "Dad, listen, we're going to have to go to the stadium," and ruined our day. And we stood here, my dad was next to me. In fact, you were here that day, and we did a piece with you that day. And after that, I put them on the train home, and I just wandered around the city on my own for 2 hours, because I just felt it was deflation, because I thought, I want to report on a club that's going places, and it felt like the club wasn't. It was taking a step back. So when it did go through, the emotion that came out of me was not just due to the build-up that day, but it was the build-up, as you say, over the 2, 3, 4 years beforehand, where we've been so close to announcing it, and then it didn't go through, and we quite often got the blame for reporting on it. And listen, rightly so, because some of the stuff we probably reported was wrong, but also because we felt that we were kind of getting blamed for it, and the fans wanted to lash out, and we were the easy ones to lash out at. So it was a massive moment of relief for me when it went through that day, and also joy, because you knew that what you were going to be reporting on moving forward was going to be largely positive.
And we'll get into that in a minute, but the last thing I want to talk about on that famous night was the cans, was the thousands of people down there at the Sir Bobby Robson statue until late in the night, early in the morning probably. Sam Fender was there going mental. What a place the city was that night. What a buzz.
Do you know what, I remember the one vision I've got is standing just along there and looking out down onto the road there behind, and there's that sort of island in the middle of the two lanes where the traffic goes in opposite direction. And the picture I remember is that one fan, I think we've got it on Sky Sports News, of
walking down the street with the flag.
With the flag, and
brilliant.
the big flag and a stick. And I just happened to look over my shoulder as he was doing it, and I turned around to the cameraman. We had a couple of cameramen that day. I turned around and said, "Get that!" And I went to say it to him, and he was already on it, getting it. So we both had realised that was just an iconic shot.
Yeah,
it was almost like we've got our club back. We're almost like we own this street, we own this club, and it just felt like the picture was just amazing. And then I took a little wander down to go to Tesco. There's no cans left at that point, actually, but
sold out.
Yeah, they were sold out, and that is true. I went down just to have a little wander. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. It was just like, it felt like, and I've reported on clubs winning trophies before, it felt like Newcastle had won like the FA Cup or had won the league, and everyone was gathering. That's honestly that was the feeling that I had. I mean, even thinking back about it now and talking about it, the hairs in the back of my neck sometimes go up, because I just kind of think how special a moment that was. And then again, came back the next morning. I'd only slept for about 3-4 hours. We were doing lives from first thing. I remember just driving up to the car park here, and my car was just going over all this broken, smashed glass everywhere, and I was like,
cans of Stella everywhere.
I had to leave my car down there and not park in its usual space, because it was just like, I'm going to end up busting one of my tyres here, and it was just carnage everywhere. And it was just like the morning after the night before, and it just kind of reinforced the next morning. You're like, actually, that did happen last night, didn't it?
Yeah, amazing. I mean, it did feel like a dream, to be honest, that it finally did happen. But Newcastle went from surviving to thriving. They've now got a bright future ahead of them, you'd hope. Sitting 7th in the table at the minute, doing okay. But upon the last 12 months, Mana Stevie's came in, good as he's been there. It was a hectic January, as we know, covered it on Sky and on the Magpie channel as well. What do you think they've got right the best? Because they've done some big, important stuff. I mean, little things for the fans, like moving Shearer's statue to Bobby Robson statue. Touches in the stadium, improvements in the training ground. They've done a lot, haven't they, in a short time? Well,
I mean, the improvements in the training ground are ongoing, and that will go on for some time. I mean, listen, that place isn't fit for purpose. Amanda Staveley said that herself, and I think it's an issue for them. I really think it's an issue for them in sort of bringing players in as well. They need to upgrade it to ensure that these top-class players that they bring in, world-class players, are going to be happy about being based there moving forward.
I think it's a bit embarrassing bringing like Bruno and Trippier out of that training ground.
A little bit.
Yeah, I think so.
A little bit coming in there and seeing it, and you wouldn't think a player who's earning £100,000 a week would be in a place like that. It just hasn't been touched for so long.
Yeah.
Listen, the club know that. Everyone in here is well aware of it. And in given time, in the next 2-3 years, they will be in maybe 3-4 years, they'll be in a purpose-built, amazing place, probably akin to what Leicester City have got, which is unbelievable, by the way. They're going to have to just muddle through just now, and which is why Eddie Howe's asked for all these improvements. He's asked for it, they're getting it, and if you go up to the place now and you see it inside, it does look largely different. It's just still small. It's just still small, and there's still, there's too many people for the size of the building. That's the training ground. Stadium, obviously, things will change with that, whether it's in terms of increasing the place. I think there's still a massive grey area over that. There's issues with planning permission and whatnot. I think that's a story. I think that's for another day. What I would say is going into the stadium now on a match day and seeing the place is just like electric, and it's you could sell the place twice over now, and you'd rather be in a place that was full to the brim like that than twice the size of here and not full if the team weren't doing so well. So listen, that's a story for another day. I think the biggest thing they've done, in my opinion, is bringing in the manager, Eddie Howe. I stood here again on the same spot when the Unai Emery deal fell through, and I must admit I felt this is a real blow in the early days. In the first month, not getting in your number one target at that stage and having to go for your second choice. But listen, I think it's been a blessing in disguise, because I think Eddie Howe, and I'll be the first to put my hands up and to say he's for me surpassed what I would have expected from him at this stage. He's an absolute joy, pleasure to work with, great to talk to, never gives us anything. So great for you. Great for you guys as fans. Doesn't give us any good lines, but listen, He's a consummate professional, and the one thing I'll say, I've said this a couple of times now, I've not heard one player say a bad word about him, and I don't just mean current players who aren't in the team. Like, look at Matt Ritchie's hardly had a kick under him, doesn't say a bad word about him. That under Steve Bruce he probably would have kicked off, you know. Look at the players who've left in the summer, the likes of Hendrick, Gale, Clark, all these guys.
Fernandez last night did a great interview as well.
Absolutely, yeah. All these guys, you know, he's essentially not giving them a kick of the ball here. He said that you're not part of my plans moving forward. Not one murmur from them, not one bad word from them, which shows everything about their respect for him and the way he treats them. So I think that's been the best piece of business they've done. In terms of the signings, they've largely done well. You know, guys like Bruno Guimaraes and Alex Isak, we've not seen enough of him yet, but I'm sure you will in the future. To see guys of that calibre here now at St James's Park, when you look back to what the team was maybe just a couple of years ago, is pretty special. So, and there's more going to come. 8 players have arrived in 2 transfer windows. I think when we're stood here this time next year, there'll probably be 15, 16 in the door. There might come a time this time next year where a starting 11 might contain all new signings.
Wow.
Yes, the likes of, you know, Joe Linton will probably stay around for longer, perhaps St Maximin, Callum Wilson and others. But there could be a stage, if they carry on the rate that they're going, where you could see a full starting 11 of signings who have arrived since the takeover. So listen, it's better than, look at Man City when they were taking over. They went out throwing money about, but Robinho straight away. There was no rules for Man City at all. I actually think in a roundabout way it's actually better that there's some rules for Newcastle, because I think it allows you guys as supporters to enjoy it a bit more. I think it allows you to enjoy the ride, enjoy every day, enjoy every month, enjoy every game. Whereas if you just turned up one day it was pre-takeover, next day you come in and Mbappe's here and stuff. It's
Chelsea style and Abramovich type.
It's 0 to 100 too fast. Like, it's just, you don't get to enjoy the journey. And as much as I know you want to all be there, but I think you'll enjoy the journey more if it's done gradually. And we're saying gradually. It's not that gradual. They've spent £210 million in 2 transfer windows without bringing any money in.
Yeah,
I think when you write it down on paper, there's a lot has happened.
So you think come January, we're going to talk about a little bit on transfers already, Keith. We'll be sick of it, but we'll be doing plenty of it in the coming months. James Maddison, we've seen him perform well at Leicester the other night. There's still talks that he might be the number 1 target in January. That's going to take big money again though, isn't it?
I'll take huge money now. I mean, every goal he scores is going to add a bit onto his price tag.
Contract's winding down though, isn't it?
It is, but listen, don't shoot the messenger. I don't know. I just don't think that'll happen.
No.
I've said that a couple. I hope I'm wrong. I think you've got to look at what Maddison wants. And you heard Maddison in an interview the other night talking about the players at the big clubs. He said it a couple of times. Obviously, he's alluding to your Fodens, your Grealish, Sterling, who play in the same position he does in the England squad. He's not in it. He's desperate to get in that England squad. Will he think going from Leicester to Newcastle elevates him into the England squad while Newcastle aren't in Europe? I'm not too sure about that. Also, his contract's rolling down. He could become in a position where he could probably choose whatever he wants there, and a bit like what Tielemans is going to do. Tielemans' contract's going to be up at the end of the season. He could sign a pre-contract with someone in January, or move someone at the end of the season, and he could probably get telephone numbers in terms of what he's looking for.
Yeah.
Newcastle have got a structure here, and I don't think their structure would go to as far as someone like that who's wanting maybe, let's say, £200,000. They're not going to pay that.
Yeah.
So that's why I think Tielemans and Maddison will be difficult. I think Newcastle in the summer were led to believe they could have got him, because Leicester wanted money. They were led to believe they could have got him if they'd put a certain bid in. They obviously have ended up getting the money for Fofana in instead, and that kind of kept the Wolves at bay in terms of their financial situation. I think with Maddison now, that means that they know they could ask for big money for him. And I just think Maddison probably has his sights set somewhere else, playing European football, Champions League football, to get into the England squad at this time. I'm not saying that couldn't be the case in the future. And I think too, I just think with the structure that's in place here at Newcastle at the moment, I'm not sure whether these guys fit into that at the moment. Could be wrong, but listen, I think they'll have a try. I think they'll have a try in January. I think they will have a little nibble.
Yeah.
I just be surprised if it happens.
We'll talk more names closer at the time in January. We've got plenty of time to do that.
Yeah.
We'll finish off on Amanda Davies' interview with you that you said just after the takeover.
You were going to say Amanda Davies' interview with you, because Matty, I'm sure you're all aware, did an interview with her a couple of weeks ago and he's not stopped talking about it.
Should be wallpaper and everything on my phone now, mate. But no, you interviewed Amanda first last year after the takeover. She boldly claimed that 5 to 10 years was the goal for a Premier League title and challenge amongst the elite of Manchester City and Paris Saint-Germain. That's now 4 to 9 years. Yeah, time goes quick. Do you think that's still possible in that time frame?
Well, I think they think it's possible, and that's all that matters. It doesn't really matter what I think. I mean, 4 years probably no. 9.
Nine's achievable, maybe.
I think so.
Get things right.
Yeah, I think so.
Ashworth's there, Eels is now there.
And listen, the setup now in the club with these guys, they've gone for top players in the space of those two that you've just mentioned. You know, I mean, what Darren Eales has done, he knows how to build a club from the ground up in terms of the commercial side of things, and that's what he'll concentrate on. Ashworth, look what he's done before, his involvement at Brighton, and obviously with England before that, and he's one of the big players at the game in terms of what he does. So, you know, they're getting proper people in those positions, and I think that augurs well for the future. Listen, you never know, because a lot of these things are luck as well. Look at Leicester when they won the title. They got lucky that year because the other teams are poor. The problem you've got at the moment is, you know, you're going to be up against like Man City, who just get stronger and stronger. They've got the best, arguably the best player in the world in there at the moment, breaking all records, and Newcastle just can't compete with that at the moment. I mean, they've had to sell Sterling, Zinchenko, and who's the other one? Jesus, to bring him in to facilitate that. Yeah. But that's how good he is. I think Newcastle will get there. Whether it means winning the league, I don't know. But I do think in 9 years, if we're stood here in 9 years' time, I think they'll be competing, yeah. Whether that means winning or not, I don't know. But you would like to think in that 4 to 9 year period, you'd like to think they'll have won a trophy of some sort. And that'll be the best moment for all of you guys, that first trophy, whether they go on to win the league or the Champions League or whatever. I think that trophy, the first trophy that they win, will be the best moment. Take it from a Hearts fan who we hadn't won a trophy in 36 years, and we won the Scottish Cup in 1998. Since then we've beaten our arch rivals Hibs 5-1 in the Scottish Cup final, but still that 1998 Cup win was the best because it was one we'd waited for so long for. So listen, we don't know what the future will hold, but they believe it will happen. And if they believe it will happen, and they've pretty much been true to their word and everything else they've done and said so far, that's good enough for me. Imagine
the scenes when you're in the office, and the fans are down there, thousands of them after a cup win. It'll be crazy.
I know,
loads of beer cans.
I'm just thinking, doing this again in 9 years' time. That's a scary prospect.
Me and you, mate, we'll be here. Don't worry, we'll be here.
I'll have no hair left by then. I'll be full. I'll be bald, and I'll have maybe a white beard.
My beard will be grey and everything, and it'll be good stuff. Right, cheers, Keith. Thanks for your time, mate.
Worries.
Thanks for watching, everyone. Subscribe to the Magpie Channel TV. We'll see you on the next one.